What's up, everybody? All of those SnowTrax fans out there in YouTube world. Super happy to be back for our second SnowTrax live episode, I guess. I don't know. In this series, again, it's going to be about 12. We're going to do about 12 of these. Probably will end up doing more by the time it's all said and done. But for now, we're doing the first 12. Super glad you guys have joined us. I had such a great time last time. Honestly, I've been talking about it all week. I had so much fun reading your comments and getting your feedback and trying to figure out how to answer your questions. And it was just a really great time, and I'm super glad that we can do it again. I do want to start off by saying that this series, at least the first 12 of them, are sponsored by Skidoo. They're brought to you by Skidoo. It is Skidoo who made this possible for us. That does not at all mean that we can only talk about Skidoo for the next hour or so. We can talk about any topics whatsoever, anything you guys want to know about, anything you got going on. We're totally fine to talk about that too. But I like to start these with some sort of Skidoo-centric topic, and that's what we're going to do today. Before I do that, though, I want to address something. Last week I wore a Skidoo hat and a Skidoo shirt, and to me that was too much. That was just too, I don't know, it was too much. So this week I'm just wearing the Skidoo hat and generic shirt. But I wanted to talk about something before we get into this that is a topic that comes up with our viewers all the time, especially on our YouTube videos, is the topic of bias. And if we get called one thing more than we get called anything else, it's biased. And it's always about who won the latest shootout or who won sled of the year that year. It's just constant. And at the end of the day, I can see why somebody might say, well, you're biased to Skidoo because they sponsored this thing. And that's just not true. It's not a thing. It's not real. It never has been, never will be. Here at SnowTrax, we are sponsored. We are supported by all of the manufacturers, all four major manufacturers in the industry right now. We have been for years. When Yamaha was still in business, we were sponsored by them as well, or supported by them as well. So no matter what I do, no matter what AJ and I or Mark does, when we pick a sled to win a shootout, one of our customers is happy and one of our customers or three of our customers aren't. So it's never been something that's benefited any of us to pick one winner over the other. And I just want to say that because I am wearing a Skidoo hat right now, and I just hope nobody says, oh, you're biased to Skidoo the next time we do a shootout and maybe a Skidoo wins. So anyway, that's that. Again, thanks to Skidoo for supporting this and for bringing this to all of us. So let's get started with our topic today. Today, it's funny, there's already some comments in here. Dude, man, I don't know how to say this name. Iola Sagiatuk. Your question is, who here still has two strokes? A lot of us. But that is the topic for today. Well, it's not, it's the opposite. But I wanted to talk about four strokes. And the reason I want to talk about four strokes is twofold. First, in losing Yamaha, we lost a huge part of the four-stroke market in the snowmobile industry. And that sucks. I mean, really, it does. That's sad. Losing Yamaha for me was a lot more emotional because of my history with Yamaha and how long they've been around and just the nostalgia. And I mean, I had a snow scoot was my first snowmobile, so that was sad too. And I know a lot of good people at Yamaha who I don't get to see as much anymore, and that's sad. But what it also did was put a lot of emphasis on Skidoo, because Skidoo is the only manufacturer now that has a full range lineup of four strokes. I mean, they've got the whole line. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are saying, Skidoo is going to be the replacement for my Yamaha four stroke. There's a lot of people saying that. So I wanted to talk about four strokes. I talk a lot about two strokes. I'm a two stroke guy. However, four strokes have come a long, long way. And at Skidoo, well, what is it? The market now, they're somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 35% of the market, I believe it's right around there, are four-stroke buyers. So it is a very, very valid part of the market. And obviously Skidoo has taken four strokes to a whole other level in terms of lightweight, compact, high horsepower, excellent performance, throttle response, et cetera, and built some incredible four-stroke snowmobiles, industry best four-stroke snowmobiles, in my opinion. So I just want to get what you guys think about four strokes. Are we going the right direction with four strokes? Are the four strokes that we have on the market right now, are they good? Are they the right ones? What do we need to change? What do we need to do to make four strokes more palatable to that other 65% of the market? Though I do think some people will never change, and I might be one of them. I don't know, I'm pretty old. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Again, we don't have to just talk about that, but I did want to bring up Skidoo has a full lineup of four strokes. They've got the Ace architecture engines. They've got a 600 two-cylinder, a 900 three-cylinder, a 900 turbo three-cylinder, a 900 turbo R three-cylinder. That is a wide breadth of engines in the four-stroke segment, and they are in a lot of different models, right from utility all the way up to the ultra-high performance. So if you're buying a four-stroke, I'm thinking you're probably going to be buying a Skidoo in the future. Arctic Cat has four strokes still. I'm just going to come out and say it. It's old technology, old chassis, old engine technology. Still works good, but the rest of the industry has moved on from that chassis in particular, including Arctic Cat. And then Polaris has their four-stroke as well, but at the moment it's 90 horsepower. There is a buyer for that, but it's not the meat of the market for sure, and we don't know what's going to happen there. So anyway, let's just see what you guys are asking right now. No snow, no good. No, that's true. I agree with you. Wear a Yamaha shirt. You know what's super funny about that? Who wrote that? Sunset Trail Rider. I knew what I was going to talk about this week, and as I was looking for this shirt, I pulled a Yamaha sweater off of the rack, and I was like, I could wear this, but then I thought I shouldn't wear this, so I didn't. But it definitely did cross my mind. It was actually one of the final edition Yamaha shirts. I think they were kind of like a limited run of shirts, and I managed to get one. So it was a final edition Yamaha shirt that I was going to wear, but I didn't. So someday, maybe when we change topics. Let's see. Four strokes have come a long way, but I'm still not sold yet. Sean Flannery. I agree with you. Four strokes have come a long way. A long way. I mean, when we think back to Polaris's 750 turbo and the 660, originally a non-turbo from Arctic Cat, and then a 660 turbo in those days, those heavy four strokes that didn't make crazy horsepower. And my goodness, we have come a long way, and thank goodness we have. I certainly see that there are people who are better suited to four-stroke snowmobiles. Absolutely, that's true. There are people who can make use of the benefits of a four-stroke, and there are many. And then there are people who simply won't be deterred and want two-strokes. And there are people who definitely need a two-stroke because it's lighter weight, and that's reasonable. So I agree with you, Sean. They've come a long way. Let's see. Are they really lightweight, Mike K? I mean, yeah. You have to put everything in context, right? Is a two-stroke snowmobile really lightweight when you consider a two-stroke dirt bike? Is a four-stroke snowmobile really lightweight compared to other four strokes? The Skidoo four strokes are really lightweight, yes. Are they lightweight compared to a comparable horsepower two-stroke? They are heavier, but it's not as much as you might think. There were rumors or talk out there about how four strokes could be like 100, 150 pounds heavier. It's really not that much anymore. Not that two strokes have gotten heavier, but four strokes have just gotten lighter. Skidoo's Ace architecture engine technology was specifically designed to build high horsepower four strokes that are smaller, more compact, and lightweight, and they've definitely managed to do that. And that's why we have these great four strokes right now. Let's see. Love my Renegade 900 Ace Adrenaline, but would love it if I could get that engine at a higher spec. I don't need a turbo R to appreciate better suspension and brakes. Great point, Chad Broad. So the way it works with the manufacturers is that they sell. Okay, so they provide products, right? They provide their lineup at the beginning of the year, and then what sells helps them determine what they're going to build more of next year. Now they're also trying to innovate. You'll see some of these manufacturers coming up with a new product or a new classification. Turbo two-stroke is a good example. They don't know how many they're going to sell of those. Sometimes it's a win, sometimes it's a flop. But generally speaking, they go by what the market says they should do. So if you don't see a model you wish was there, I hate to say it, but it's just a reality that there might not be as many like you as you think there is, at least not enough to support an entire model in a lineup with the R&D that goes along with that. So that's really the only answer for that comment. But there are those models out there. Yeah, wouldn't it be cool to have a full jam like 100 horsepower 900 non-turbo that's like XRS trim, for like the younger people or somebody who just doesn't need to go as fast but wants to hit bumps. It's an interesting concept. I definitely think so. Let's see. Lawrence Beal, I'm probably the youngest four-stroke owner, 22 years old, XRS 900R. You aren't. There are a lot of young guys riding four-strokes. Because again, I talked about there are a lot of benefits to four-stroke. I mean, you got clean operation. They're very economical in terms of fuel, obviously oil. You've got longevity in there. I mean, two strokes today are very durable engines that last a long, long time, but four strokes still last longer. You've got that reliability factor in there that, I think that two strokes have come a long, long way in terms of reliability. We don't have to worry about them blowing up every ride anymore like we did in the 70s and the 80s and early 90s. But definitely if you're buying a sled to keep for the next 7-8 years to put 10,000, 12,000 kilometers, whatever, 8,000 miles, 10,000 miles on it, it's a easy sell for a four-stroke if that's the case. So it's not about age, it's about usage. So that's my thoughts on that. Let's see. Devon, the Expedition Extreme 900 TR is the best sled for Eastern Canada Labrador. It is a cool sled, isn't it? I've spent quite a bit of time on one of those sleds and I had a blast on it. In fact, I think we might have a shootout using that sled this coming winter against Polaris and then a Lynx, so that should be interesting. But yeah, the Expedition Extreme is such a bizarre model. You know, it's like, I mean, certainly when I saw it, I was like, why? But then you talk to people like yourself on the East Coast, or people even further north, UP of Michigan, lots of places in Quebec. That's their sled because it's capable from a utility perspective, still capable from a utility perspective, but also super fun to ride, and you can ride it hard and you can even hit big jumps on it. So it's a really cool sled. So far, nobody's even, well, I guess Lynx has a similar model or a model that kind of competes there. Polaris doesn't and Arctic Cat doesn't, but the market may not be able to support all four manufacturers producing in that category, but it's cool that Skidoo did it. It's cool that Lynx has one as well. Keith Day, I have an 18 Sidewinder, then 2024 Skidoo Renegade 900 Turbo R. Best decision ever. See, you're the guy that I'm talking about. Was the 2018 Sidewinder a bad sled? No, it's a great sled. Really, it's still today. It's a great sled, and I would happily ride one. But I'm gonna make up a new word today. I'd a lot happier ride a 900 Turbo R Renegade. You know, I mean, technology has moved forward. Sleds are better. And that's just a fact. That's how the world goes. You know, we don't drive a car from 2010 and say, wow, this is like significantly better or even as good as a car from 2025. They've improved in so many ways. Likewise, snowmobiles and the 2024 Renegade 900 Turbo R that you've bought, that is the pinnacle of four-stroke technology right now. So great choice. Devin writes, do I have any old sleds from my days as a kid? Those were a long time ago, those days, longer than I like to admit. Do I have any leftover sleds? No. That's one thing my family didn't do, is keep all of our old kids' stuff, with the exception of one vehicle. The first three-wheeler at the time, because four-wheelers weren't a thing, that I got, I was 2 years old. My dad brought it home. My mom was cool with it. My grandmother freaked out. Was a Suzuki ALT 50 three-wheeler. I believe it was called the Trail Buddy. And I called it the My Size because when I first saw it, my dad had tons of three-wheelers, 250Rs and 350Xs and things like that. So he was always riding big sport sport three-wheelers. And when he dropped off the ALT 50, I ran up to him and I was like, hey, it's my size. And from then on, it was called the My Size. I rode it till I was big enough to move up to something bigger. And then AJ took it, and he's a wild man. He was even crazier when he was a kid. He wrecked it, but learned to ride on it. He ran himself over with it 2 times. That's amazing. We kept that. And actually, I was just looking back at some old pictures in a hard drive I've got. I took that, I want to say it's probably around 10 years ago now. I took it, sourced new parts for it from all over the place. Parts came from Japan to put it back together and refurbish it. And we were going to put it on a shelf, and it was going to be like that heirloom thing. And before we could bring it in the house, it was in our garage, and somebody stole it. And it didn't run, and you can't get the parts to make it run anymore. So whoever stole it isn't using it. it's really like one of the things in my family that our whole family feels really, really bad about, really sad that that vehicle's gone because we loved it so much. And it really was the starting point for AJ and I to get into power sports. It's what screwed us up entirely. And now we can't think of anything else most days. So, if anybody sees an ALT50, Suzuki ALT50 with a brand new seat, brand new plastic, and brand new graphics, let me know because it's probably mine. Let's see. What are my thoughts on Ruffian coming to market with a lightweight 600cc dual ski trail model and single ski off-trail lineup? Good question. I've seen a lot about the Ruffians. The single ski one I think is pretty interesting. It's like a cross between a snowhawk and a snow bike. It's got elements of both, the good elements of a snowhawk, not all the bad ones. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's what Arctic Cat was trying to do when they were building their snow bike, to build a purpose-built, buy it the way it is snow bike, not a kit. That didn't end up being a feasible product line for them, so I wonder if it's going to be feasible for Ruffian. The 2-ski model, though, I think is going to be plagued by a lot of problems in that it is pretty tall. It's going to be fairly tippy on the trail. There's a reason snowmobiles look the way they do. It's not an accident. There's a reason that snowmobiles, generally speaking today, all look very similar, like dirt bikes. Most dirt bikes look pretty similar because there's a way to do things that works, and that's just how they work. And the snow, the medium that we ride on, has certain characteristics, and certain designs are just working. So it'll be interesting to see how it works. If I get a chance to ride it, I will happily put miles on it. I would love to, both models, but I'm curious to see just how good it could possibly be on the trail. Let's see here. Dax Rushlow. Dax, I like that name. I have a Sidewinder, and great if you ride long, flat trails. My wife's Polaris is more fun to ride in the trees and windy, unstable trails. That's pretty much what sums up the Yamaha versus everybody else debate. They were great on straight, smooth, fast trails, even, windy trails. But when it got tight, it was just it was a bit bigger chore to handle them. It just is what it is. The last Yamahas were the best ones they ever built, with that the new ski they built that finally fixed some of the handling issues, and they got as good as they were ever going to be. But again, I keep saying this like it's flogging a dead horse. You can only do so much with a chassis that was designed in like 2012. Technology's come a long way, so it's pretty hard to keep up with these companies building skid frames like the R-Motion. The slide action skid frame that was in the Sidewinders, Arctic Cat slide action skid frame. It's not up to the task. It's not up to the task now, which is why Arctic Cat needs a skid frame more than they need anything else to kind of bring themselves up to that Pro CC / PPS3 and R-Motion level of ride quality and big bump absorption. Let's see. JD Car Guy says, I'm interested in your thoughts on what's missing in 4-stroke sleds. Additionally, are electrics getting more interesting? What is missing in 4-stroke sleds? Boy, I mean, I think the universal answer to that is always going to be what's missing is lighter weight. What's missing is what's not missing. Do we need more horsepower? I mean, we're pushing 200 horsepower right now. I know everybody loves more power, and I get it. If I got a chance to ride a 350 horsepower snowmobile, I would 100% take it. But day to day, riding a snowmobile every day, every weekend, on the trails, touring around, do I want more than 200 horsepower? I don't need it. I live in lake country. I live in Ontario, Canada. Right there is a lake that has a trail on it that leads to every other part of Ontario. So when I go riding, we hit like a 5-lake chain first and then get to the trails. So if anybody wants power to go fast in open spaces, it's me, because I have major open spaces to ride. I can do a loop of 400 kilometers. What's that, like 280 miles from my house, and hit, I think it's 35 lakes, and just do a huge loop on lakes running 100 miles an hour all day. It's super cool. And I don't need more than 200 horsepower. So is that missing? I don't think so. I guess I would say competition for skidoo is missing. That would be what would be nice to have, is Arctic Cat to build one and Polaris to build a better one. That's the best answer I can give you right now. What was the rest? Oh, are electrics getting more interesting? Electrics are definitely getting more interesting. Are they getting more like valid to an average snowmobiler? No. Skidoo's four-stroke is not intended to be an average person, an average snowmobile. It's a very niche product that they are not ashamed to say is a niche product. They're not suggesting everybody buy one. The Taiga is definitely marketed more to the enthusiast snowmobiler, and I spent a lot of time on Taigas, including their latest models. They are better than ever. They are actually surprisingly good snowmobiles. For a company that knew nothing about building snowmobile suspension and chassis, they built their own suspension and chassis, front suspension, the whole 9 yards, and it's a passable snowmobile for sure. But it only goes like 70 miles or something on a charge. I mean, if I leave here, I don't know that I can hit a charger in that distance from anywhere from my house. So, I mean, it's not useful to me. In Quebec, where the charging network is way more robust, literally like every tiny town has a charging station somewhere. I mean, towns that have 5 people in them, government adds a charging station. That's a lot more likely. So you can ride one in Quebec a lot more realistically. But here, you know, in Ontario, you get up Northern Ontario, you're lucky to find a gas station, let alone a charging station. So, yeah, that's I don't know. I think that they're getting better, but we're a long way from them being like legitimate snowmobiles, in my opinion. Mike K. The thing is, E-Tex runs so clean and sounds so good. They're hard to replace the noise and the hit of a two-stroke. Well, that's really the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's the difference between the two. A four-stroke has its own personality, its own characteristics, and the two-stroke has its own personality and characteristics. And there are those of us who just don't want one versus the other. They don't like one versus the other. I don't mind a four-stroke. Some of them sound awesome. I mean, the power is definitely pretty impressive when you hit that throttle at like 60 miles an hour, and the boost kicks in and pulls your arms up to 115. That feels good. That's a good aspect of a four-stroke. But for me, it's not. It doesn't have the characteristics that I'm looking for the most. If I had to ride one, I'd be more than happy to ride one all day, every day for an entire winter. I wouldn't complain one bit. But if I have the choice, I'm a two-stroke guy. I still think four-strokes are valid, and 35% of the market agrees with me. So, yeah, I think that's that. Craig Dean, I'm a Skidoo Renegade 900 Ace rider. I rented a Polaris XC-S4. Great sled, sounded odd, but I liked the ride and had decent power. I think the sound kills the Polaris S4. You know what's funny about that? And again, these are all subjective things. I say a lot, you know, my opinions are my opinions. They can be different than your opinions, and neither of us are wrong. But things like ergonomics, things like sound, things like appearance, these are all subjective things. They're what I think. They're my opinion. And I love how the S4 sounds. Honestly, I think it sounds super cool. It sounds like a little V-twin, even though it's a parallel twin. It's like a V-twin. It has that raspy bark to it. The problem is that when it barks at you, it doesn't run very far. You know, it just doesn't have long legs. Down low though, it has really good corner to corner power. It handles good. I would say one thing that we've complained about with Polaris since they released that sled is they made the decision to put dual runner carbides on it, and that absolutely kills the handling. If the sled you rode had dual runner carbides, it doesn't handle right. It pushes in the corners like crazy. You take those off, you put the single runner carbide on from all of the Polaris two-stroke models, and the handling of that sled goes up by like 40 to 50% better, and I'm not exaggerating. So we had one anyway last winter and the winter before that, and the first thing we did was ditch the dual runners, put on singles, and everybody who rode it loved it. You just didn't want to be with a bunch of guys on, you know, 650s, 850s turbos, four-stroke turbos running lakes all day, because, you know, they're done lunch and you're just showing up. I just want to address this one. Northwood Snowmobiling LLC says, thank you for adding these live videos. There was a void in the live snowmobile interaction after John Prusak left Snowgoer to go to Arctic. I just want to say, I am super excited for John. John is a great guy. There was a time in the past when the snowmobile media, there was a lot of animosity between all of the different types of media in the snowmobile industry. I was there during that time, and it really bugged me. There's absolutely no reason any of us shouldn't be friends with each other. We all love the same thing. Just because we're fighting for the same ad dollars doesn't mean that one of us is a bad person. We can all treat each other well, and that is how the snowmobile media industry right now. That's how the snowmobile media is right now. When we get together at, say, a press launch or something like that, I love sitting down with those guys and having dinner and hanging out and talking. We used to keep our opinions like super quiet, tight to our chest. We didn't want to give anybody our own opinions because we're worried that they would take them. Now we all talk about our opinions. Now we sit around the table and we discuss what we liked and didn't like, how things work, what could be improved. And I think that the entire media, and I think that consumers who are consuming that media are better for it. So John, way to go. Super excited for you. We will be working with John at Arctic Cat, and I'm excited for that. So I just wanted to address that. And thank you that we are filling the void that John left, because he was doing a good job with his live streams for sure. And that wasn't our intent here, but if that's the outcome, then we will take it. I have to address this comment. Alice Lester says, "Hi Dad, love you." Self-explanatory. Love you too, kid. Alice, my youngest daughter, is 12 right now, and she's going to get her snowmobile license this year. My oldest daughter's 14. She has her snowmobile license. So I am like pumped about this winter. We got sleds for them to ride. I'm going riding with my kids. My entire life, since I was 8, I wanted to have kids. Not when I was 8, but like I knew I wanted to have kids. And I knew that I wanted to go snowmobiling with my kids. Like my dad snowmobiled with me, and now I get to do that. And it is every bit as good as I thought it was going to be. Let's see, Ross E. Any thoughts on a group ride show with other content creators, Sled Addicts, Beavertail? On a group ride or a show. We've talked about having different people kind of connect with the show if it goes that direction. Right now, we're just feeling this whole thing out, seeing how it works. Getting used to the technology. We had some technical things last week, and I like it how it is. But I do want to bring on guests. There will be some people that we're going to bring on here to talk about different, I guess, relevant topics to them. But for right now, we're doing it this way. And I don't know, a group ride, I'd love to meet up with some of these guys and hang out and meet them and go riding with them. But you know what happens in the winter is that all of us who are doing any kind of media or social media stuff in the winter get super busy, and it's really hard to do. Certainly from us here at SnowTrax, we are swamped in the winter between the riding I want to do personally to gain my opinions and get the experience, to the filming that we do, every week, to the tech stuff, to the business behind the filming. Obviously, it's not all just out on the trail having a great time riding snowmobiles. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. I don't have a lot of time, and I wish I had more. And the time I do have, again, I'm dedicating to riding with my kids, because that's the most important thing in the world to me. So if that ever happens and those guys plan a group ride and I'm available, I will go. Best answer I can give to that one. Devin, great story on the three-wheeler. Thanks, man. Please find it for me. Will BRP finally go 650, 670? I feel like Polaris' 650 has been a great success. Polaris' 650 has been a great success. It is a phenomenal snowmobile. There is not a 600 in the market that can come close to it. That's just a fact. I'm sorry, but it's true. Doesn't mean the 600s aren't great. They are, but the 650 is better. Skidoo's not stupid. Skidoo is a very, very smart company. They know everything that's going on. They see everything that's happening. And they are definitely aware, in my opinion, I believe that they are definitely aware that, a 650 is needed. A 670, I have reservations about a 670. I worry about that because now we've got CC creep. The 650 is, in my opinion, kind of a natural progression. Because we've had 650s in the past. We've had 670s in the past, it's true too. But once you go 670, you're almost 700. Now you're 70 cc's away from 600. So, we've almost come into a new category. It'd be cool anyway. I'm not saying it wouldn't be awesome. But then what does Arctic Cat do? Come up with a 680, And then Polaris says, well, we'll just do like a 700 now. And then we're back where we started 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I don't know. 650, 670, whatever, build one. I want it. I want Skidoo to do it. I think if they do it, it's going to be sick. I know if they do it, it's going to be sick, and I'm looking forward to it. So my speculation has been for the past 3 years that we are going to see a 650/670 Skidoo engine, and it hasn't happened yet. I'm not going to stop speculating because I'm like 95% sure I'm right. And one day my speculations will come true, and I'll say, see, I told you so, even though I was wrong multiple years in a row. One of these days I'll be right. Let's see, Sean Flannery, Skidoo, I believe, has done the best job over the years being the leader in the industry with technology from the MXZ and the OG Rider Forward chassis. I missed the 121 skids for trail sleds, though. I think you're right. I think you're right. You are right. Skidoo has done a great job over the years pushing the industry from about the year 2000 on, skidoo really has been the one pushing the snowmobile industry forward. In terms of new designs, I mean, the rev, you can't ever take away the importance of the rev in the industry. I mean, it changed snowmobiling. It didn't just change it a little bit, it changed it a lot. Now, the truth behind the rev that's really important to understand is that Polaris was developing their articulated Pro Ride chassis at that same time that the Rush ended up being. It's not that Skidoo mowed the grass, it's not that one copy, it's not like that at all, but the Pro Ride had a pretty rider forward seating position and was sort of way back in the R&D process when the rev was released. So these guys work on 5 years ahead basically of what we see. But Skidoo did it first, and when they did it, it became so obvious that there's no other way to do a snowmobile. You have to do rider forward because it's so much better, that everybody's followed suit. So thank you to Skidoo for being the ones to push that and bring that out before anybody else did and show us what we didn't know we needed. And now we can't live without it. I get on an old school sled, and I feel like I'm riding a Harley with my feet out on the highway pegs. It just feels so wrong. But yeah, Skidoo did a great job with it, and I really liked the rev when it came out. So anyway, let's see. Oh, you get another part to that question, don't you, Sean? From the said OG rider forward, I missed the 121 sleds for trail sleds though. 121, 128, you could blindfold me, I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference. I don't think there is a difference, to be honest, other than fitting sleds in your trailer. If your trailer's just that much too short, I can't tell. I can't tell at all. I prefer a 137, more traction, more braking surface. I like it better. 121s were fast, they were flickable. A 128 is like that much longer, the whole track, which means, each top and bottom of the track is only that much longer. That's how much longer your sled is, like 3.5 inches. So it's really not that much, and I don't know that it makes a huge difference. But I hear a lot of people say that they wish they'd bring more 121s back, and that's what people really want. So there are people out there who agree with you. Let me see here. Keith Day, do you think Skidoo will build a bigger engine or up the horsepower in the future? I think that the horsepower war is always raging. I think that there is no displacement limit. I think that whatever they do, they'll do. Whatever they need to do, they'll do. I said this last week, but the current 900s are 900 cc's. They're 300s per cylinder. That's the beauty of the Ace architecture. It's like Lego. They're 300 cc's each, and you just build them to the till you get to the horsepower number you want, right? But the turbo, or the Maverick R, has the same architecture engine. It's not the same engine, but it's similar architecture, and it's a 999, so it's a 1000 cc. Skidoo's old engines were 1200s. So could we see something bigger? Could they push a 1200? Yeah, it would require a whole new motor. Are they going to do it? Again, this goes back to that 200 horsepower conversation. We're making 200 horsepower. How much more do we need to make? And what is the benefit of that horsepower versus the cost of that horsepower? You make more power, you're going to use more fuel. If you use more fuel, you get less range, and is that going to negate the benefit of the four-stroke for touring in northern areas or going on long trips where range is super important? I don't know. There will always be lake racers who want more. Luckily, there's tuners out there, and there's all kinds of aftermarket parts to give it to them. I kind of doubt anybody's really interested in pushing past 200, though I could see Polaris or Arctic Cat developing a motor that made 201 just to say we win. And that would be silly, but I can see them doing it. Mike Skidmore, my Yamaha Attack is a lot harder to ride in a ditch than my Skidoo 800 Renegade. Depends on what year the 800 Renegade is, but yeah, I can imagine that would be true. That's a funny comment. Mike, again, the speed limit on Canada lakes is probably 80 kilometers an hour. It's not. There is no speed limit on lakes in Canada. I know there is in Minnesota and other states, but in Canada there's not. You can be charged, I think, with reckless or dangerous if you're doing something really stupid, but just going fast doesn't count. That's what I love about riding lakes, man, is I can pin it and not worry about it, so that's pretty sweet. Uh, there's a lot of questions here. This is really great. You guys are like interacting so well. I love this. I said this last week, but this is really like one of my favorite things to do. Mike again. So is Timber Sled out of production, or did Polaris sell it to another manufacturer? I think I just heard they sold it. They did stop production. There's so many. I'm not going to call snow bikes a fad because they're not. They're totally valid. They're a totally valid vehicle, and they are awesome. But that went crazy, for 5-6 years where it was really big. Everybody wanted one. Everybody needed to sell one. We had, like I mentioned earlier, we had Arctic Cat trying to build a purpose-built. It was really crazy, and then it just crashed really hard. And I think part of the reason it crashed, to be honest, was maybe part of what Arctic Cat was trying to overcome. Is it's a big investment. If you want a snow bike, you got to buy the dirt bike and you got to buy the kit, and that becomes a very expensive undertaking for something that arguably shouldn't be. The kits don't hold their value real great. The improvements year after year were good, but they weren't so drastic that a guy 3 years ago felt like I have to buy the new one, and that's a difficult thing for a manufacturer to deal with when you don't have buyers coming back on a regular basis to buy the new stuff. There's only so many new buyers out there. And once you've tapped that market, if the current buyers aren't flipping their products all the time, you run into people to sell to. And I don't know if that's part of the problem. I really don't know the behind the scenes part of it, but I do know that they're not doing it anymore. And it's gone back to being some niche companies building them. They're building great kits, but they're no longer major manufacturers doing it. Wow. Okay. Northwood Snowmobiling LLC. Thoughts on the latest Ontario snowmobile trail closures? I think they suck. I have thoughts that are going to get me in trouble, and I don't want to get in trouble. But I think there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of people working behind the scenes who have no business in the positions that they're in. Snowmobiling is an enthusiast sport. It was built on the backs of passionate snowmobilers, volunteers, and those are the people who should be running things. The passionate snowmobilers, the people who love this sport more than anything else, should be the ones who are running the show. And I think when that happens, things get better. And I think as soon as people who are just business people take over, things get worse. I'm not going to say anything else about it other than it totally sucks that they're shutting down trails. There's no reason for it. There are ways around all of the problems that are arising. There are ways to fix this, easy ways. You just got to have people fix it. I'm not going to say anything else about that. I don't want to get the bad phone calls. What's this one here? Jimmy G, will you be riding testing any Lynx models this season? Absolutely, yeah. We usually get 2. I cannot remember what we ordered this year. I think one's an 850 turbo. It might be a Rave, but I honestly don't know. So we will, 100%, and you will see them on the show. So stay tuned. I love Lynx snowmobiles. I really do. They are super awesome snowmobiles, and they fit my riding style perfectly. So if we don't get Lynx for a season, I'm going to be a grumpy guy. What is Chris Broad wants to know, what is the market share for the various engines, entry level 55 horsepower versus 4-stroke versus 600 class 2-stroke, 800 class 2-stroke? I'm sorry, but I can't tell you. Those are numbers that actually we don't get real easy access to. It's super weird in the snowmobile industry. There's a group that does this kind of monitoring and monitors the whole industry, and they share their information largely just with the manufacturers. This manufacturer supported group who does it. And we don't get access to those numbers unless the manufacturer shares them with us. And we do ask, and sometimes if we have a reason, they'll let us know, but lots of times they keep them pretty tight-lipped. So I'm not really sure. I know for sure that the 850 segment is big. I know that 600 is also big. I know 4-stroke is approximately 35%. I have no idea what the smaller displacement sleds are in terms of market share. Not a clue. It's a great question because to know how people move up through the industry? Where do they start? On what models do they start? And what models do we need to build to get new, not new people, but to bring people in, yeah, I guess new people into the sport. People have been manufacturers have been trying this for a long time, right? I mean, Polaris, well, maybe wasn't the pioneer, but they tried hard. They did a great job with the Shift. Does anybody remember the Shift 600? That was a phenomenal snowmobile for the money, like way too good for the money. And it didn't sell. It lasted like 3 years and it didn't sell. Nobody bought them. Why? I don't know, because they were amazing sleds. I had like 3 friends who bought them. And for like $500, they put rear wheels on, a thumb warmer, and whatever else it didn't have, like an oil cap or something. I can't remember. It had one weird thing it didn't have. And they rode them all year and they loved them and they were great sleds. They were equally as good as the expensive 600s that I was riding. Who else has tried it? I mean, we've had lots of companies. Arctic Cat had the, what do they call it? The ZR4000, the 500 two-stroke. That one didn't sell very good. Polaris, again, with the Evo, they still sell it, but it doesn't sell the way I think it should. I know the Neo sold really, really well for skidoo, and I don't know what the numbers are this year or how it's looking, but I know that sold really, really well. Their 600 EFI model, which is a full-size sled but downsized seat with a 600 EFI, it doesn't sell as well as I think it should either. When people talk so much about price and complain so much about price, these sleds should be selling like crazy, but these are the sleds that sit on showroom floors, so no idea. Northwoods AD. Should Skidoo develop more light utility options? They've done very well with wide tracks, but not everyone wants a wide track. It would be nice to see the 600 or 850 E-Tech in the Expedition Sport. Okay, so interesting question, right? Light utility. What was utility in the past? You know, in the 70s, 80s, and even early 90s, what was a utility sled? It was a very, like, almost humorously simple, lightweight snowmobile. That's what it was. We had the Tundra. The Tundra had like 9 moving parts. The Bravo from Yamaha. We had like the Elan and those types of sleds. We had all of these sleds that were, I mean, you could put them back together with chicken wire and duct tape, and I'm talking about the motor too. You know, if you blew a motor, you just needed like some Pepsid AC and some duct tape, and you could make it run somehow. I don't know. It was magic. Those things went forever, and people loved them because they were light enough that if you got them stuck while you're out in the woods working, if you're a trapper or if you're an ice fisherman or whatever, you could get them unstuck yourself. Now, Skidoo sells winches for their snowmobiles, and there's a reason behind that. You can't sell those super, super low-tech, lightweight sleds because of EPA regulations. They're too dirty. You know, a super cheap, super simple 2-stroke lightweight engine is going to pollute more than the EPA says it should, and therefore you have to upgrade it. And by the time you upgrade it, it gets heavier, it gets more complex, it's harder to fix. You know, it's why a Bravo today costs 3 times what it costs brand new. If you can find a Bravo, it doesn't even have to be a nice one. It can be wrecked, and it's still worth 3 times what it costs brand new to buy. Same with Elan, same with Tundras. Like, these sleds are all hyper valuable because they are that simple, lightweight utility machine that I really think if Skidoo went and built an Elan like tomorrow, they would sell more than they can build. Everybody would buy one. If they could build an Elan for like $2,500, I'd buy 4 and just go rip around on the lake with them, right? Like, it'd be amazing. But unfortunately, those days really are over for us because of environmental protections and environmental controls. Let's see. Seathom 51, would you guys do a wet weight comparison between Skidoo Polaris Turbo mountain sleds with shot electric start on Polaris? Wondering what the ready to ride weight penalty would be on the Skidoo. This is something that we actually can't do, and there's a reason for it. We live on the East Coast. We don't live anywhere near the mountains. Manufacturers have sent us mountain sleds before. We've had free rides. Polaris sent us, when the 9R first came out, they sent us, what was that thing? A Chaos 9R. I think it was a 146. They're useless to us. They really are. We don't ride them. We can't ride them. They overheat, burn off slide rails. They handle like crap. So we don't get access to mountain sleds. I'm sorry. I would love to do that. We do that with trail sleds though. And you know, the differences in weight would translate over, I think, pretty well as far as like a shot competition package 850 turbo with shot versus the Polaris whatever. So we do that. We try and do it every year. AJ does it. and then we post a video about it. We actually have a video on it from, I think, last year. You can go on YouTube and find it. I remember when snowmobile magazines did shootouts. They did drag strip tests and trail ride opinions. Mike Skidmore. We still do trail ride opinions. Drag racing is one of those things that personally, I know, you know what? I know a lot of people care. I know a lot of people want to know which one's fastest. We've done some of that testing. We've tried it out on the lake in front of our house. And what we found is that snow conditions, temperature, snow, like snow density, if you pack 2 runs, which run you're on, because the snow is different on each one, it's so not fair. It'll give you an idea. What we were doing was like timed runs, because that's kind of more fair, same conditions essentially. Unless you have a plowed ice track and you have snowmobiles that are heavily studded, you can't accurately measure which one is going faster on the snow, because there are so many uncontrollable factors. You can tell if one's really fast and you can tell if one really isn't. But in terms of like who will always be at the end of the lake, if you're not pumping out way more horsepower, it's like this. And I don't know that I really care. I just want to go snowmobiling and hold it wide open down the lake and go fast. If that guy beside me I'm riding with goes 3 kilometers an hour faster than me, or 2.5 miles an hour faster than me, it really doesn't ruin my day. It doesn't hurt my ego. I just enjoy riding. And I don't ride full throttle down the lakes anyway, because I want to ride with my buddies. I want to be able to look over there and see, my buddy Tanner pounding through the drifts in the snow, watching the snow explode off the front suspension. That's the fun of it for me. But I know there are guys who care, and yeah, so I don't mean to downplay your question. It's just not something that's important to me, but we do try to do that sort of empirical testing as best we can. Would I regret buying, this is Pusher Reviews, would I regret buying an RMK 650 155 pull start for my first snowmobile? That would totally depend on what you're going to do with it. If you're going to ride low elevation, I'm assuming that you're in the mountains or somewhere where there's a lot of deep snow. If you're riding low elevation, the 650 has great power, and it'll probably get you where you want to go. If you're riding high elevation, you have to remember that 650 now becomes like a 500 when you're at 8,000 feet. So you might not want that. There's a reason that manufacturers don't build high-end 650 or 600 class mountain sleds. They're always more entry level, because they don't work that good when you're up at 10,000 feet. So it all depends on where you're riding. Yeah. At the time, their design was pretty bizarre. The front suspension was totally weird. It worked pretty good. We had 2 of them here. We rode them for a winter. And there was a lot of good things about them. There was a lot of bad things about them too. But you're right. I'll give you that. They were sort of the first rider forward. I mean, if you want to go way, way back, the Snow Scoot was the first rider forward, right? I mean, does it count? No. But it was the first rider forward snowmobile. But yes, you're right. Now, when it comes to Redline, they sold snowmobiles, like 40. I don't count that as being official. That is not an official manufacturer. I actually met a guy at the Snowmobile Hall of Fame induction for my dad, was that last year, who like owns all of the old Redline parts and is building Redlines from the leftover parts and then building his own parts to fill in the stuff that didn't exist and whatever. So yeah, it's just not valid. I mean, if you go out and you build 40 sleds, can you say that you're a sled manufacturer? I don't think so. I think that you're a very niche manufacturer of custom things, but I wouldn't count that. And yeah, it was rider forward-ish, but anyway, I don't know. What would your thoughts be? This is Daniel Gagne. What would your thoughts be on a triple 600 E-Tech single pipe? I feel like it would really come with a large weight penalty. It would come with probably a 30% weight penalty because you have a 600 two-stroke. Yeah, you have a 600 two-stroke. Wait a minute. I just got a note from somebody we're having audio issues. Can anybody confirm that? Are we having audio issues? Gotta get down to her. Breaking up. Is it any better? Does it sound better now? Nothing has changed on my end. Everything is exactly the same. I haven't touched a single thing. I'm like a repellent of technology. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going. Where were we? Oh, 600 E-Tech triple cylinder single pipe. Yeah, it would be heavier than it needs to be, and it wouldn't give you any benefits. It wouldn't make more power, more usable power. It would sound really great. Audio problem. Audio is good here. Okay. All right. Anyway, I'll continue. Yeah, I don't know. Triple two strokes. Look, we talked about this last week. Triple two strokes are cool. They're super cool. They were great. I said this last week. I'll say it again. My dad coined the term that the triple two-stroke was the sound of the triple two-stroke was the national anthem of snowmobiling, because it sounds so cool. And even today, when I hear somebody running one, it's like I stop and I roll my window down, or I go outside and poke my head out the door of my house to listen to the guy riding the triple. But there's no benefit. There's nothing to be gained by a two-stroke triple right now. Not when we have the twins that make the horsepower they do with the weight they do. Power to weight matters, especially in snowmobiling, because snowmobiling is a weight-sensitive sport. I mean, you're floating over top of a soft surface. Weight is not nearly as big a deal when you're riding on a hard surface, but when it's a soft surface, it definitely matters. So light is right, and that's my thoughts on triples. But you know, if you ever build one, record it and upload it as a ringtone, and I'll probably use it in my ringtone. I got kind of behind here in questions. There's a lot of questions. Man, you guys are like really engaged this week. It's super good. David, Kiara, I don't know. Anyway, do you think the new Mach Z was a hit or just a money grab? I think it was both. I think the Mach Z was a hit for sure, because they sold every one they could make, and people still want them. And I think it was smart not to build too many and leave people wanting. Was it a bit of a money grab? A little bit, because you didn't really get a whole lot more for the extra money it cost. Now, it didn't cost a ton more. It wasn't like an exclusive crazy upcharge, but it was more expensive. So was it a money grab? Yes, if you want to look at it that way. But I think it was just a way for Skidoo to say, hey, we want to pay homage to a great sled. We want to use our new technology to do it and provide somebody with like this limited edition, coolest sled that we're not going to build anymore. Anyone who has one, certainly I don't think thinks it was a money grab, but anyone who didn't get one is kind of, grumpy about it. This is Andrew Rowan. What two-up sled in the past 5 years would you recommend for somebody who has a 9-year-old but still wants to ride hard with no passenger? Okay, this is a good question. They're all good questions, just so you guys know. I'm skipping over any of the ones that aren't good questions. So if you want to ride with a 9-year-old, it has a lot to do with how big your 9-year-old is. When my youngest was 9 years old, she was very small. And one of the problems with two-up sleds today is the back seats are opulent, especially on a Skidoo, like a Grand Touring has this incredible back seat, or the the Arctic Cat. What do they call their big honking Touring 7000 Pantera? Do they still call it a Pantera? I can't remember. It's been a long summer. The seats are just so incredible with heated this and heated butt pads and flexible backrests and thick padding. It's so great. The problem is that the footrests aren't adjustable. They are just down there on the running boards. And if you're a kid with short legs, you are literally holding on with your arms only. You can't brace yourself with your feet. Your feet are flopping around. I have been saying, this is dead serious. I have been saying for 10 years, build a sled, a two-up sled that has adjustable height footrests so that my littler kid, smaller kid can ride on the back. Or you know what? Forget kid. My wife is pretty short. She's not super tall. And it's hard for her to reach the floorboards on the back of a two-up sled. And she's an adult. So there's something fundamentally wrong with that aspect of two-up snowmobiles. If I ride on the back of a two-up snowmobile, I fit great. But when am I on the back of a two-up snowmobile? Hopefully never. With that said, something like a Skidoo Grand Touring is a great choice if you want to ride 2 up, but then also ride 1 up, because it is essentially just a longer track, you know, Renegade. That's what it is, you know. So there's nothing wrong with that. The other option you can do, Polaris has a 2 up now, and it's a pretty good sled. It's actually a very good sled. And then the Arctic Cat's still around as well. But the one thing you can do for Skidoo and Polaris for sure, I don't know that Arctic Cat has one right now, is you can buy the seat, the extra seat that you just clip on the back. It has hot grips. You can get the heated seat cushion for it as well. It's got the backrest, the hand deflectors. It's like a full jam 2 up seat. And then it just clips off when you don't want it. So you can buy, like, for example, a Polaris, an Assault, and you can put a 2 up seat on it, go riding with your kid, pull it off, and you still got an 850 Assault, right? Like, that's the way I do it. If it was me and I wanted to have a dual purpose 2 up sled, that's my opinion is the best way to do it. And I actually have 4 or 5 friends who have done the same thing with Skidoo and Polarises, and we ride every weekend, just the 2 of us. And then on Sundays sometimes, you know, after church, we head out and we ride with our families, and those guys clip the seat on. I go get another sled because I have a whole bunch to choose from, but they clip the seat on and they go 2 up riding all day, and it's great. So yeah, that's my suggestion. Let's see. Skidoo's been a great company. I'm a pure Polaris guy all my life, but it was nice to see a competitor who is innovative, brings reliability, and that challenge to the market. And that was Adam Wagner. Yeah, I agree, man. Both companies are great. All 3 companies, all 4 companies are great. But Skidoo has definitely pushed snowmobiling into a different dimension. I mean, they have been pushing the quality, build quality, fit and finish, reliability. They have been pushing that harder than anybody else has, and forcing everybody else to catch up and to try and get to where they are. When you look at a Skidoo and you sit down and you just have a look at a Skidoo and you put an Arctic Cat beside it, the Arctic Cat is better than it's ever been by like 1,000%, not exaggerating, like so much better than it was 10 years ago. But the Skidoo is still just a little, the seams are tighter, everything fits just a little bit better. When you click something in, it clicks with a better click. So yeah, they're just pushing things hard. And I think that has something to do with sort of that European influence from people in Quebec. They love their BMWs and their Mercedes and their, you know, German cars and things like that. So when they drive to work and the engineers drive to work in their fancy cars, they go, I want a snowmobile that looks like that and feels like that, and that's what I'm going to try and design. So I think that's a great point, and we should all be very thankful to Skidoo for doing that. Ken Rempel, are snowmobiling driver's licenses only required in Ontario? No, well, I mean, yes and no. You can drive with your car license. If you have a car license from anywhere, you can drive in Ontario on a snowmobile. If you are 12 years old, between 12 and 16, you can get a snowmobile license and drive in Ontario. If you are 16 or over and don't have a car driver's license, you can get a snowmobile license as an adult and ride a snowmobile. There are limitations to it, but that's sort of how licensing is in Ontario. Agawa Rentals, cool question. What's with sleds as good as they are built today? Where does the industry go from here? We're pushing crazy power and pretty lightweight already. Just rinse and repeat, or something else different coming? Oh, dude, this is the magic ball question, right? Like, what do I see in my future? You're 100% right. We have gone to a point that when I was a kid, no one imagined. I remember when I was a kid, when I was really little, I was probably like 8. We were at Swish LA for dinner with my family, with my mom and dad and AJ and I. My dad turned his placemat over and he had a pencil and he drew a picture. It was kind of a design. It looked like an Indie at the time, but this is silly. But he drew it and put the name on it. He put Lucalaris, because it would look like a Polaris, 750. And I remember when we looked at it, I laughed and he laughed. He's like, 750 cc's. Like, can you imagine? That's crazy. Well, no one thought it was possible or doable or likely then, and now look what we have. So times change, things move on. We're seeing so many different designs coming out. Now, with that said, I want to point something out. I was thinking about this just the other day, actually. Somebody was talking to me about, I want to say, it was probably snowmobiles. We talk a lot about snowmobiles. We were talking about like copying, who copies who, and how snowmobiles are starting to look more similar to each other than they are different. And that's true. It's true for a reason. And I liken it to the dirt bike industry, right? Back in the 60s and 70s, dirt bikes all looked different. They all had a different rear suspension design with linkages and, I don't know, air pumps and stuff, just like crazy things that they were trying to make the dirt bike suspension better. Over time, they all kind of became the same. And now when you look at modern dirt bikes, most of them are very, very similar in their general design because that's what works. Because all of these engineers have come to a point where they said, that's the best way to do it. And until maybe somebody invents a new technology, that's the best way we can do it right now. And I think snowmobiling is getting there. I think we see the front end of snowmobiles. Everybody's double arm now. There used to be trailing arms and struts and all kinds of different things. Now everybody's double arm. We've all agreed that is the front end to have. That's the best way to do a front end on a snowmobile. There's nothing else that's better. Rider forward designs, right? Like the way you sit on a snowmobile. After Skidoo brought out the rev, everybody went, yep, that's better. That's a better way to sit. Now we sit in slightly different positions, but generally speaking, we are in a similar overall position on a snowmobile. So many of the things about snowmobiles are becoming more similar than they are different. I think until technology changes and offers the ability to make something different, things are going to stay very similar. I think the biggest thing you're going to see changes in is engines as time goes on, simply because they have to change. The EPA continues to tighten and tighten their grip, and snowmobile manufacturers have to keep pushing and pushing for cleaner and cleaner operations. So that's going to change engines in general. So yeah, right now, the future is wild. I mean, look at Lynx's snowcross sled they built. Like, there's a totally different deal. Like, wild design, purpose built, and it has ideas that no one's ever seen before. So maybe I'm all totally wrong. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and there are 100 different ways to do things. But yeah, I mean, the future's fun. That's what's fun about snowmobiling. The future is unknown, and it's going to be super great. Wow, so many questions. I could be here for hours. My wife would shoot me. I don't know how to say this either. Grussing or Gruising one. If Cat put a new skid in the 858, do you think the motor can compare to the others? No. I think the 858 is a great platform. I think it has a lot of potential. But right now, 858s are not pulling as hard as the other 850s are. We've done some testing, and run after run after run in all conditions, didn't matter what the scenario was. The 850 was, or the 858 was behind the other three, I mean, arguably. That doesn't mean it can't be better. There's huge potential in that engine. And again, with Arctic Cat being bought and the people who are in place and the engineers that they've brought in, they're not just going to sit on this motor and go, it's fine. They're going to tweak it. They are going to dig into that motor and find out where that extra horsepower needs to come from. And I think that we will see in the next few years the 858 just continue to get better and better and better, to the point where, who knows, it might be an 850 killer of all 850s. I don't know. But for right now, it's a great motor. It makes fun power down low. It's not slow. It's just, if you're going to run three 850 NAs side by side on the same trail the same day, or the same lake at the same day, it's going to come in third. Is that the most important thing about a snowmobile? Absolutely not. Are there some people who think it's the most important thing about a snowmobile? Definitely. So it depends on where you line up. Datsun Racing, do you think Polaris will come up with something similar to SHOT, and when? Okay, this is something Mark's, I think I mentioned last week, Mark is in the process of coming up with like a podcast. He's going to call it Snowflab, and his whole idea with this is going to be telling the stories from behind the scenes from the years past, the things that he knows have happened behind the scenes, and the stories that he's never had a chance to tell. It's going to be super great. It's going to just be him sitting in front of a camera, probably very similar to where I'm sitting right now, telling his stories. I hope you guys will all tune in when the time comes, because his stories are awesome. He knows stuff nobody knows. With that said, and the reason I brought that up is because so much of the technology that's similar between sleds in this industry has come about through patent infringements and the legal action behind it, and then having to trade technology to cancel out the legal action that's been happening. We've seen so many different examples of that. The first one that I can think of is coupling. Coupling on a snowmobile, the way the rear arm couples. That was something that only one company had, and then other companies had it and they weren't supposed to, and then the company that had it first had stuff the other companies had. I mean, run backwards reverse, right? Skidoo invented run backwards reverse, and then Polaris had it. And there's a story behind that, an interesting story behind that. So will they have shot? Okay, that's the one question. How are they going to get the patents? How are they going to get licenses to do it? The other part of it is that shot only works on an E-TEC. And the reason it only works on an E-TEC is because for shot, for the stator to spin the engine, it can only spin it so far. It has to fire at a specific time. And E-TEC, because it uses voice coil injectors, they time the injection perfectly. So when you push the button on shot and it starts to spin the motor, it knows exactly where it is, it knows exactly when it has to fire, and it will fire at the exact right moment to fire that motor up. It actually won't work on other motors. Does that mean the other motors can't be made for it to work? Maybe. But for right now, E-TEC is actually the secret behind shot. So, yeah. Let's see. Sell the Prophet 66. Which do you prefer, BRP Go or Polaris Ride Command? Or let's throw in, Arctic Cat system too, because they've got. Oh wait, sorry, you're talking about the app. I'm assuming you're talking about the app. I guess. As far as gauges go, I can comment on that. As far as gauges go, I find the Polaris gauge easier to use than the other two. I think the Arctic Cat gauge is flashier. It's got a brighter screen. It's like higher def, I guess. The Skidoo is a very nice looking gauge, nice and wide with really big pieces of information. But as far as like manipulating the features of the gauge, I find the Polaris one significantly easier to use. I also find it more customizable, so that I can do whatever I want easily with the Polaris gauge. There are customizable options on both of the other ones too, but they're a little more difficult to use. There's a little more restriction on what you can do. I'll be perfectly honest, I don't use the GPS. I ride trails I know. I do use group rides sometimes, and they're easy to use on the Skidoo and the Polaris. I haven't had a chance to use the Arctic Cat group ride feature yet, but we will. So I'm speaking strictly from a gauge perspective, using it as a gauge. I don't use Bluetooth. I don't listen to music. I like hearing my snowmobile, not AC/DC. Yeah, so from a gauge perspective, I prefer the Polaris one, but that doesn't mean the other two are bad. They're amazing. What else we got going on here? Mike K. I don't understand why the Backcountry XRS Turbo doesn't come with the upgraded 4-piston caliber. No kidding. As far as I'm concerned, if it says turbo on the side, it should have the best brake you make, like no exceptions. We said that to them directly, like this has to happen. So we've said it. Let's see. Max Garage, tell us about the first time you rode a Chrysler SnowRunner. I've never ridden a Chrysler SnowRunner. I would love to ride a Chrysler SnowRunner. That'd be awesome. You know what? I don't even think my dad's ever ridden one. I've only seen one in a museum. The first snow bike, kind of? I don't know. Let's see here. Todd Glim. I got a new 2024 137 VR1 850 this year. Nice. I had a 2017 800 Pro S 137 that never bottomed and rode super great front and back. Will the new VR1 give me a good ride in the back? Yes, it will give you a better ride in the back. The Pro CC is better. That was an upgrade in every possible way, and I think you're going to come away going, wow, this is worth every penny. That's my opinion. Let's see. Dave McComb, any chance of a Rotax 657, 670? We answered that earlier on. Arctic Cat King Cat was a 4-cylinder too. Yep, so was the VMAX 4 as you mentioned. Northwood Snowmobile LLC. Do I think the latest news on increasing ethanol will change the designs and upcoming engine releases and manufacturers? The way engines are right now, and with how high tech and high performance they are, and how manufacturers are pushing those engines to the edge of their capabilities day in and day out, and they have to be reliable. I think that no matter what you do with fuel, the engines are going to have to be tweaked to make that work. Does that mean it has to have a whole new fueling system? Does that mean it's going to need a redesign of how fueling works in an engine? I don't know. I don't think so. But I think that no matter what you do, if you change the medium that is making that engine function, then that engine is going to have to be adjusted to work with it, right? I haven't looked in a lot. I did read a little bit about this, but I haven't looked in deeper into this ethanol thing and the increase that they're talking about in some places. But if it's like really small areas that it's just kind of pockets and there's not, then it won't do anything. Unfortunately, manufacturers can't build a product that works for everybody perfectly everywhere. But if it becomes like a widespread, everybody's doing it, then yeah, the engines are gonna have to be tuned differently, and there may be different injectors or different whatever, things like that. Craig Lowry, have you had any experience with the 600cc Lynx, mainly a trail rider, but play a little bit off trail? Or did I miss my 850 XRS? You're going to miss your 850 XRS, not because of the XRS, but because of the 850. I mean, you can get an 850 Lynx and you won't miss anything. I found the Lynx with the PPS3, even the shorter tracks go better in deep snow than some of the other companies' longer tracks. I don't know why. The PPS, I think, maybe drops out a little further. I'm not really sure. But for some reason, I just found that those sleds go better in deep snow than other similarly length-tracked vehicles do. Depends on the track, depends on the length too. You know, you can get a 137 or whatever. But yeah, I mean, if you go from an 850 to a 600, you are going to notice that. That is not a small jump. That's a pretty big jump. Big jump down. A passenger seat for my 2014 800 Renegade is like $750. I think it attaches with the Link system. Yeah, that sounds about right. It does attach with Link, and it probably is somewhere in the $750 range, but that's a lot cheaper than buying a whole nother sled. Let's go Blue Jays from Cam Sweetenham. I'm not into team sports. If it doesn't have a motor, I really don't care, but I know a lot of people are, and yay Blue Jays. This is an interesting comment from Mike Skidmore. Polaris, Bombardier, and Arctic Cat are facing a lot of competition from the Chinese in side-by-sides and four-wheelers. That is true. That is very true. In fact, I just finished doing a test ride today on CF Moto's C-Force 1000 MV, so the mud version of their 1000 ATV, and it's a really, really good ATV. But you're right, in the ATV side-by-side world, we have this influx of Chinese and overseas produced side-by-sides and ATVs coming in, and back in the day, they were just garbage, like literal garbage. You rode it one time and you threw it right out. It was like you needed to go to Costco and buy a 10-pack. Now, though, some of these vehicles coming from overseas they're every bit as nice and as well built performance-wise as the North American products. Will we see that in snowmobiling? It's an interesting differential between those two sports. You have to remember, ATVing and side-by-side riding can happen anywhere on the planet that it's allowed, but anywhere on the planet. Snowmobiling can only happen where there's snow. So the market for a snowmobile is just simply smaller because of where it gets used. Why did Yamaha leave the snowmobile industry? Because there wasn't enough unit sales to justify designing new products and to be investing money into snowmobiles when the market is as small as it is. Is a Chinese company going to come in and build like an 850 class better than everybody else snowmobile? I think it's unlikely for two reasons. First, it'd be hard to make money because you wouldn't sell very many. I mean, snowmobilers we're pretty brand loyal people, and I don't think there's a lot of us looking to save $2,000 to buy a Chinese snowmobile. But also, unless they literally just copied a North American snowmobile, like just flat out copied it. It's pretty hard to engineer a snowmobile in China and do real world testing. So I can't imagine it would be very good. You can ride ATVs and side by sides there, but you can't ride snowmobiles. So yeah, for those reasons, I'm not too afraid about the Chinese influx into our industry right now. Let's see. Brendan, Polaris needs a 4-stroke turbo. Yeah, they do. We talked about this last week. I'll bring it up again. Have you looked under the hood of an S4? There is so much space. I think I could curl up and still close the side panels around the engine. There's so much space in there. There's room for turbos and whatever else you want to put in there. You know, they could do it because the motor has a turbo on it in the ATV and side by side, or in the side by sides. It's capable. It exists. It would just be a redesign of where to put it and how to plumb it and, you know, that kind of stuff. Should they? Yes, very much they should, because that 90 horsepower non-turbo 4-stroke, while a very good overall snowmobile, doesn't hit the meat of the 4-stroke market really at all. And Polaris could sell a lot more 4-strokes if they had the horsepower that the people are looking for who are buying 4-stroke snowmobiles. So great first start. But if it doesn't get a turbo, then it's just going to do this, and it's, you know, hasn't been a great seller for Polaris. And I believe that is pretty much entirely due to the horsepower. So either they put a turbo on it, or they make horsepower some other way, or we just eventually don't see it anymore. You know, that's unfortunately, I think, the reality of it. Let's see. If you were building a true 50/50 crossover Assault, would you spec the 1.6 Cobra or the 2-inch track? That's Cam Sweetenham. This is one of those questions again that really has to do with where you ride. If you ride in an area that has low snow or is known to have low snow, then you're going to want to go 1.6. You just have to, because the 2-inch is going to cause cooling problems and slide rail sticking problems. If you live in an area where there's more snow and you're pretty much guaranteed to have a decent amount of snow, then go 2-inch, because there's no penalty on the trail to the 2-inch. It doesn't make it handle worse or ride worse. But again, if you're concerned about snow conditions at all, do the 1.6. The 1.6 is still a great track and still provides tons and tons of traction in the deep snow. But it will allow you to ride pretty much anywhere. You still, if you do worry about snow conditions, I would strongly recommend putting a set of scratchers on it. We've been doing that with our crossover or deeper lug sleds recently, because, you know, you might run from one area that has great snow and in the same day hit an area that doesn't, and that can be problematic. So 1.6 if you're concerned about snow conditions, 2-inch if you're not. Devin, E-Tech is so impressive when you think about it today. We've had it since 2009, but it's just so good versus SDI. It's true. It's absolutely true. E-Tech is an unsung hero, you know, in the snowmobile industry, because it's what pushed everybody to go harder and harder and harder. You know, our Skidoo sort of came out with SDI, and everybody went, "Whoa, we better do this." And then E-Tech direct injection. Nobody else has done it besides them, but there are so many benefits to it that it's. I'm almost surprised we haven't seen it copied somewhere else. I know there was Fit and there was Orbital, and Polaris had some money in some of those, but it never ended up on a snowmobile due to the way it worked, the pressures required, things like that. So I'm just really surprised there's not more of it out there right now, to be honest. Jeffrey Cervani, how is the throttle response on the 4-stroke Skidoo? Any lag? I wonder if this is a response to my constant complaining about the Fortec 4-strokes and how they had throttle lag. If it's not, I had a huge problem with the Fortec 1200 because it had throttle lag and I hated it. But these Ace architecture 4-strokes don't. They have a tiny bit, a very, very small amount. They are drive-by-wire, and that's really where it comes from, is the time you push the throttle to the time the servo that's down in the engine actually turns and opens the throttle bodies. that amount of time is what causes that little bit of lag. Now, it's down to a point now where you don't even notice it. It's not dangerous anymore for sure. The XRS models have a different throttle system than the lower end models. That flipper throttle deal that's can turn and it is like a rheostat, it's not a cable. I don't like that at all. I see that there are some benefits to it. There's some reasons why it has some benefits. I think they don't outweigh the negatives in my opinion. It's too light. You can't feel it. It doesn't have enough feedback. It's awkward in its shape. I don't want to turn it around and use my finger. I don't know anybody who would. The XRS model that has a cable that runs down and it does have a short cable. It's so much better. It feels like a throttle. The response is quicker. It's just way, way better. And I wish they all came with that. It is a little bit heavier, but that's good because you can feel the throttle, especially with heavy gloves on. Is there lag? If there is, it's so unnoticeable. And especially with the turbos now, there's no turbo lag. They've found ways to spool them up really fast, keep the boost high. You really don't notice that like no power and then boost kicks in and you rip. You don't notice that anymore. It's linear power, very linear, which is great. Where are we at here? Todd, thanks. You pronounced my last name correct. That was luck. That was total luck. Kevin Foley, as someone who lives in low area and is on a budget, I loved the bang for your buck segment. Any plans on doing another segment this season? I think we do. Oh, man, you know what's really sad is the end of last year we had all this stuff planned and I can't remember because it's been a long summer and there's been a lot of ATV side-by-side stuff going on, but I'm pretty sure we have a 650 shootout. It won't be the entry level bang for your buck stuff, like the really entry level stuff, but I'm pretty sure we have a 650 shootout. I know we have an 850 shootout. If we don't, I've been pushing more and more to get some of our press units being more entry-level sleds, and it's selfish for me because my kids can ride them. But I think it's totally valid that we start doing more of that kind of stuff and not just testing XCRs and XRSs and Raves. So I can't remember what we have on order this year, but hopefully there'll be some that are more entry-level that will give you the answers you're looking for. Devin, Yamaha perfected 4-stroke throttle response. Do you think BRP will finally update the Ace throttle body setup? The lag is bad, even in sport mode. Again, I just sort of spoke about that, but there's a reason why the 4-stroke throttle response on a Yamaha was better, and it's because it was a cable. You were directly connected to the throttle bodies through your thumb. There was no thinking involved. You just pushed it and it pulled. It was mechanical. That's why it felt so good. That's why mechanical throttles, cable-operated throttles, feel so good, is because that cable doesn't have to think about anything. It's connected at both ends. When you push this end has to move. So there is no lag. There is no lack of response. And that's why I much prefer, on a snowmobile, a cable-operated throttle. Declan Delaney, lots of debate about gear, brand, style, open face, closed face, helmet, boots. Any input? Will manufacturers ever bring back the awesome sled matching gear of the 80s and 90s? I think Lynx did this year with that limited edition. What is it called? The Rave has 3 letters, and it's a retro graphic. And I think they actually offered a suit that almost matches it. There was a time when everybody wanted to look just like their sled, and that was cool. And that time has long passed. I don't think anybody wants to wear a suit that like has the same stripes as their sled. I could be wrong about that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't, but I would love to wear. I love to wear just like non-manufacturer branded suits. I like to wear something other than if I'm riding a skidoo. I don't want to wear a skidoo suit. So, I don't know. We're coming to the end here. We actually just have another 5 minutes before I have to shut this down. An hour and a half is the limit, but I'll see if I can get through some of these other ones. Let's see. Rob Young, does Polaris with Dynamics ride as good as Skidoo R Motion without smart shocks? No. Nothing rides as good as skidoo R motion. And I prefer skidoo R motion without smart shocks, honestly. Nothing rides as good as R motion. And Polaris is close. I mean, the Pro CC is a great skid frame, but R motion is better. And I think the reason R motion is better is because it's more versatile. It can give you that incredible small bump compliance, but also resist bottoming like crazy. So it's multifunctional, and it's got a wide range of use and trail condition, capabilities. But yeah, nothing else out there can touch R motion yet. I know Arctic Cat's working on a skid frame, so maybe it'll be better. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be cool if Arctic Cat came back with a rear suspension that just blew everybody's doors off and put them right at the front of the pack? That would be so exciting. I hope that happens. Northwood Snowmobile LSC with the question about Chinese-made sleds. Thoughts on Odes starting distribution in Canada? We've tested some Odes this year. Their ATVs, they're side by side. The one that we tested was like utility. 1000 utility, kind of like a Ranger North Star, full cab, AC and heat. Man, AJ did the test, and I can't remember what he said the difference in price was between the Odes and then the matching Polaris North Star. It was stupid. It was to the point where you could buy a complete other side-by-side. Does that mean you should buy the Odes? Our experience with it was that it was a fine-performing side-by-side. We had no trouble with ours, but we didn't have it that long. That's the truth. So yeah, I don't know. Odes isn't going to build a snowmobile, and if they do, they're crazy. Nobody's going to buy one. That's it. Any sled recommendations for the wife? She's 5'3", 330 pounds, smaller rider. Are there any models better suited to our smaller, better halves? She sounds like she's probably pretty close in size to my daughter, my oldest daughter. My oldest daughter, she rides a 650 Indy and fits on it great. She loves it. She can also ride the 600 skidoos, no problem. If your wife is really concerned about the size of a sled, the EFI 600 skidoo has a lower seat. Everything else about it is full size, but the seat is actually physically lower, making it easier to ride. If you want to go to anything else, you're now down to things like the Neo and the Evo from Polaris and Skidoo, and those are physically smaller snowmobiles, which are fine. They don't have the horsepower, and she's riding a smaller snowmobile. So my suggestion is get her to sit on a Polaris or a Skidoo 600 or an Arctic Cat 600. They have excellent ergonomics. And if she can feel comfortable on that, then she's good to go, because those are great beginner sleds, or not beginner, but like great more entry level sleds for people who have some experience, but not a lot. Washburn Sports. Do you know if Arctic Cat has made any comments about their goal in adding dealers to their network? My issue with not buying an Arctic Cat is we have no dealers near me, and I'm in Bayfield County, Wisconsin. I'm sorry that I don't know where you are, but I do know this, that they have been adding dealers like crazy. Hundreds of dealers they've signed up, and different dealers too. Arctic Cat dealers who got canceled, they've re-signed them. They've also signed up a lot of Yamaha dealers who want to have something to sell in the winter. So yeah, they're signing up a lot of dealers in your area. If they haven't, I don't know why that would be, but definitely Arctic Cat knows you got to have dealers to service sleds and sell sleds, and they're signing up dealers like crazy. So they're back in so many different ways. It's not just somebody bought the company. Somebody bought the company, and they are changing it back to when it was great. Lawrence Beal, Ninja H2 sled. Cool. Let's do that. If you do that, I'll ride it. Ryan Ross, could SnowTrax do a segment on suspension setup? What does what? Yes, I would love to do that. Problem is, I don't even know sometimes. There are so many adjustable things, especially when you get into these really high-end shock packages with high and low speed compression, rebound. You got your torsion springs, you got the coupler blocks, you got all this stuff. I know what they do individually, but how they affect each other is really the trick. That's the dark art of suspension. And then the one I'm not going to lie to you. I can't grasp the concept of high and low speed compression. I just can't. I've had it explained to me so many times, but it seems like every time somebody explains it to me, it's different than the other person who explained it to me, or there's like an opposite thing that they're telling me it does, or it works in a certain way that's opposite to what the last guy said. I have no idea. I have talked about how cool it would be if we could bring a suspension guy from one of these big suspension companies and do an actual story with them to say, hey, you tell us how it works. You're the suspension guy. You tell us how it works. Fingers crossed. Someday I would love to do that. So I certainly hope we can. Let's see. I'm running out of time here. It's actually 8:30, so I'm going to take one more and then I got to shut her down. Let's see. So I'm just gonna answer this one because yeah, I think it's important. Dan Harper's asked, are we ever going to any of the dealer open houses? This is a question that means a lot to me because the favorite thing about what I do for me is talking to you guys. That's what I love most about my job, is just hanging out and talking to you guys. That's why I love this. This is so much fun. This is, I mean, technically this is work, but it's not work. This is a great time. We can't. It's just such a crazy time. This time of year, especially for us at SnowTrax, is busy because I'm sure most of you know, but if you don't, we have a dirt show as well called Snowtraxtv, where we test ATVs and side-by-sides. And this particular time of year, we are producing dirt content still, and we are starting to produce some snow content. So we're doing a crossover. This time of year is nuts. But unfortunately, the amount of time I spend away from home every year is a lot, and I don't want to spend more time away from home. So as much as I would love to go to open houses and stuff, and if a big dealer somewhere, has a huge open house, I would love to go there. I love my family more. You guys are great. They're better. So yeah, we can't do that kind of stuff. If it happens in my hometown, yeah, I'll go and hang out, but I'm not going to be traveling to do that. I would love to have that time though. It would be so great to go and meet you guys in person and just do stuff like that. And someday maybe, someday maybe we will, but for now, that's not a possibility. Hopefully I'll see you on the trail though. That would be better than an open house if we all just meet each other on the trail, because that means we're all riding snowmobiles and that's all we want to do. So I'm going to have to shut this down, guys. It is 8:30. That was an hour and a half. This was a great time. I really enjoyed doing this with you guys. I said this last week. I said this last week. This is really fun. Hearing your thoughts directly, is really helpful for me actually to know where your minds are at and the things that you're wondering, the things you want to know about. It really does help steer kind of my thoughts for the season and what I should be focusing on and the kind of topics I should be looking at. So this is really good research for me even, and it's helpful. I really appreciate you guys logging on for this. I appreciate you guys watching the show. We all do. Everybody here at SnowTrax, there's a good sized crew here. We all really appreciate knowing that you guys are out there watching the stuff that we make. We do pour our heart and soul into this stuff a lot, and knowing that it's helping even some of you, or it's helpful in some way to you guys, really means a lot to us. So we really like those comments, and we really do appreciate it. We're going to keep pushing, keep doing what we're doing. I want to say again, I need to say this at the end because it's really important. Huge thank you to Skidoo for supporting this YouTube Live segment that we're doing here. We couldn't have done it without them, but they have made this possible. They're excited about it. We're excited about it. You guys seem to be excited about it. So big thanks to Skidoo. We've had great relationship with Skidoo for decades, and that will never change. So yeah, big thanks to them. Coming back next week. So initially the plan was to have these every other week, but we decided that for the first 3 weeks, we do them every week. So next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, you will see the SnowTrax live graphic switch to the video, and then my face will be after the video. That's how it's going to work. So if you guys have any other questions, save them up, write them down in a notebook, whatever, and bring them next week. I haven't decided what topic we're going to talk on next week. They kind of come to me, in the middle of the night. I wake up and go, that's perfect. So yeah, I don't know what we're going to chat about, but I know you guys are going to have questions, and you're going to have great comments, and it's going to be awesome. So please come back next week. If you guys enjoyed this whole segment, check out our YouTube channel. We got all kinds of stuff on there that you're going to love. Like, comment, subscribe. It all means a lot to us, and we all appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. You are our viewers. You are why we get to do what we do, and we are eternally grateful for that. So you guys have a good week. Pray for snow. It's snowing in some areas. I'm super pumped. It's cold here. Ice on the ponds. It's coming. It's going to be a great winter, and we will definitely see you guys next week. Same time, same